Dear God, this is strange. You'll get a kick. Well, I hope you get a kick out of this. I certainly do. Anyway, Jerry had signed me up to do this, and then I had some questions about whether I was really all that honest or not. And I thought to myself, goodness, I sure can't talk at this meeting. And then, so I wrote Jerry, and she said, okay. And then I talked to my sponsor about it. He said, well, you're basically an honest guy. And, I think people could benefit from what you have to say. And anyway, then I wrote Jerry back and said, well, I think I could do it after all. And she said, well, I found somebody else already. So here I am anyway. This is kind of funny, and I'm totally unprepared, I might add, just in case you had any doubts about that. But I do have some things to say, and I guess I'll say them. So appreciate your all being here, and very grateful that I can do this. So anyway, honesty in step one. Uh, Boy, where to begin? And I've got 20 minutes, is that correct? Approximately 20 minutes? Oh,
Yes.
thanks. Okay, good. All right. Well, step one, admitted we were powerless over food and, um, and that our lives had become unmanageable. Okay. Um, well, I'm powerless over food. Real quick, I'll tell you, I've gained and lost 2,000 pounds in my life. I think that says it all. Um, in many ways, I'm an anorexic as well as an overeater. I fasted for 30 days one time. I fasted for 15 days one time. And then I fasted for 5 days one time, although that third fast, I fasted from water as well. And so fortunately, I'm around. Apparently, you're not supposed to live through that kind of a thing. But anyway, that's my anorexic side. The other side is the heavy side. I'd go from about 150 to 250. Never got, morbidly obese, but I certainly got on the heavy side. Anyway, that's my kind of food history. Um, what I would like to talk about, however, is not so much my food as perhaps two other things. Then let me launch into honesty. Um, I was powerless over food, but that's not all I was powerless over. I mean, in the food area. And that is that when I was a kid, I was severely abused. And I came into, after that experience, the world to me was a very scary place, very scary. You never knew when somebody was going to abuse you or not. And so the point is, I got to be resentful toward everyone and everything, fearful toward everyone and everything. And the very worst part of that, the far and away the worst part of it, was that I was scared stiff and full of hatred toward my higher power. And I came into OA in 1987 and did not get a single ounce of recovery until 2009 when by great miracle, and I can't go into it unfortunately, but by great miracle, I came to believe that God loved me. That was the greatest, bar none, experience of my entire life. And still to this very day is the greatest experience I've ever had. And I live and breathe that experience all day long, every single day. But the point is, I was spiritually bankrupt. So I was powerless over food, okay, but much more powerless over the hatred and fear that I had and the spiritual bankruptcy that I had. Um, Having said that, that's one point I wanted to make. The other was that for me, step one was a miracle. For many people, it's sort of just a given. For me, it was not. It was a miracle, and I'll tell you why it was a miracle. The reason is that, of course, I overate plenty and I underate plenty, but every single time, especially when I overate, Every single time I thought one of three things. I thought, well, there's got to be a diet out there that I can find and it'll work. That's number one. No, and of course, I tried about a zillion diets. I don't have to tell you. Uh, that was one thought. Another thought is, Karl, try harder. You're just not trying hard enough. So that was the second thing I wondered about. The third thing was there's got to be some kind of a miraculous healer out there, and that person can pray over me in some kind of way, and I'll get relieved of this terrible thing that seems to be bothering me all the time. The point is, it never occurred to me that I was powerless. Never. I always thought one of those three things. And so for me to make step one was a miracle, and I mean that. It was a miracle for me to be honest about the fact that I was a compulsive overeater was a miracle because it never occurred to me that I was powerless over food. But that did occur to me. It was about 2 years after that great spiritual awakening. That happened to me in 2009, the spiritual awakening, God loves me. And about two or plus, yeah, a little bit longer than that, maybe three. At any rate, I got abstinent, and I mean, that was a miracle. Gosh Almighty, that was a miracle. Um, I mean, it was a miracle to make step one. It was another miracle to get abstinent. Um, so that's the background I come from. Now, as for honesty, I do have some things to say about that. Um, and I'm not going to say what you may expect me to say, by the way. I have no idea what you expect, but to me, honesty is an awful lot more than telling my sponsor what I'm eating. I mean, I do that, but it's an awful lot more than that. And I happened to write down, I had a list on my computer of some honesty things, and I didn't do it for this workshop. But anyway, I took it out and I'm going to read you some of these things. Uh, some of these things having to do with honesty. One is to my own self be true. To my own self be true. That's a matter of honesty. I got to know who I am. I got to believe I'm okay. And I got to be true to that. So that's one aspect of honesty. Another one is somewhat related to that is I got to be honest about the fact that I'm human. I am human and I need to be honest about that. Karl, because you're human, you make mistakes. And so you're allowed to make mistakes because you're a human being. And the big book, as you probably know, it says we are not saints. We are not saints. We're human beings. But the thing that the big book says is that we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. Isn't that beautiful? We are human beings who are very imperfect, but we're willing to grow along spiritual lines. And grow is not, there's not a period at the end of grow. Grow continues. So I need to be honest about that. Another thing I need to be honest about, and this is very, very important for me, there are many positives in my life. It's not all negative. That's been a lifelong learning for me, and I haven't by any means learned it all. But the seven-step prayer says something quite amazing about that. And for many years, I did not listen to what it said in the seven-step prayer. It says, my creator, I am now willing that you have all of me, good and bad. And then it goes on to say, please take away the bad. But I always missed the good part of that prayer. I am willing that you have all of me, good and bad. And I think there's an awful lot more good about me, and I think there's an awful lot more good about every single person that I'm speaking to right now than there is bad. But I never clued into that. I always looked at the bad, and that's very dishonest. That's very dishonest. So when I look at the good in myself, I'm being honest. Another thing that's kind of part of that on my list here is that I have a beautiful body, a beautiful mind, and a beautiful spirit. God, that's beautiful, isn't that? Every single person who is living to me, who is listening to me right now, has a beautiful body, a beautiful mind, and a beautiful spirit. Doesn't make one bit of difference how much you weigh. You have a beautiful body, a beautiful mind, and a beautiful spirit. And it makes no difference whatsoever goes through your mind or through your spirit. Those are beautiful. Okay. Another thing I have is that I can make mistakes. God only knows I can make mistakes. But the mistakes I make are not me. The real me has an unshakable goodness. And that's why the seven-step prayer says you can have all of me, God. You can have the good as well. And I think God does an awful lot more with the good side of me than he does with the bad side. Also, I have that errors are okay. I make plenty of them. They're okay. Um, let's see. Well, another thing I have, this has to do, I've got four addictions. I didn't want my addictions to be lonely, so I made sure that I had several of them so they could all be friends with each other. At any rate, this is a codependent thing, but it helps me a lot. And that is that when other people change, that does no good for me. This is freedom is an inside job. If somebody else starts doing well in their life, that's great. And if they aren't doing well, well, that's okay too. And neither one of those helps me at all. And that's a matter of honesty. Um, Another thing that's been very helpful for me by way of honesty is that everyone has their own spiritual path, and my path is different from everybody else, and that's okay. The big book speaks about that. That's very beautiful in the big book. In what is it? Um, the fourth chapter. What is that? We agnostics. It says, much to our relief, we found that we did not have to consider another person's uh, path. And then it goes on to say, the path is wide, broad and wide. Isn't that beautiful? Doesn't make one bit of difference whose higher power we're talking about, whether it's yours or mine. The path is broad enough for all of us. And boy, that's a matter of honesty. It took me a long, long time, and I do mean a long, long time, as in probably well over 60 years, to be able to buy into that one. So that's a matter of honesty. Um, Another one is, and this is related to something I said earlier, but I love myself. I'm nowhere near as good at it as I'd like to be, but that's a matter of honesty. Another is that I can be grateful for everything. I really can, even the bad stuff. That's a matter of honesty. Another one, boy, this really helps me by way of honesty, and that is that my higher power and I are a team. I don't do all the work, and if I try to, if my ego comes to the forward, my ego says, "Oh, Karl, it's your job. You do all of it, and then you'll be okay." Well, it don't work that way. And if my higher power comes on and says, "Don't worry about anything, Karl. I'll take care of everything. You don't have to do anything." Well, that doesn't work either. My higher power and I are a team, and that's a matter of honesty. Um, I'll mention this last one. I love this one. This is really nice. And that is life is fun. Life is fun. That's a matter of honesty. I think that God made life to be fun. He didn't make it, God didn't, at least in my experience, God didn't make it to be terrible. And I used to think that. I mean, after all, gee whiz, life is terrible, and all those people who abused me, and all those people who turned me into a scary, resentful person. I mean, in those days, life was not fun at all. But boy, I have fun today. I do. I really enjoy my higher power. My higher power says to me all the time, enjoy me. And another thing that my higher power tells me is to expect more. Wow. I'm growing and I enjoy growing.
5 minutes.
A minute to go. Okay, well, I'm
I
just
no, you have 5 minutes.
oh, 5 minutes. Okay. Well, I'm going to read to you if I can lay my hands on it, which I know I can. Now let me get this. All right, here we go. I want to, I don't know
I
how
don't know
many
how many
people here
people here
may have
may.
heard of two-way prayer. Anyway, two-way prayer is something that you can find in the big book, but you've got to look for it. You don't necessarily know it's going to be there. And the 11th step says, of course, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact. But in one of the well, there's four parts to the 11th step. But the morning, I'll call it the morning review. It's not quite that, but I'll call it the morning review. It says, we ask God to direct our thoughts. God, please direct my thoughts all day long, all day long. And I do something called two-way prayer where I ask God to direct my thoughts and then I write down what my thoughts are. And I want to tell you something that my higher power said to me, which just knocks me off my feet. Said to me 7 years ago on two-way prayer. And when I listen to what God said to me, boy, I need to be honest about that. I need to say to myself, Karl, God really said this to you, and God meant what he said, and you need to believe this. And I do believe this. Now, listen to this. And this is not only for me, I might add, it's for every single person who's listening to me. This is what God said to me. I mean, it knocks me off my feet every time I consider it. Listen to this. Whoops. I got the wrong one. Let me see if I can get the right one. I think I got the right one this time. Yep, here we go. Okay, listen to this. This will it knocks me off my feet, and I hope it knocks you off your feet. And you can be honest about this. And here's what God said to me. This is incredible. Anyway, God said, I love you, I love you, I love you. I never, boy, this is so, I never tire of saying I love you, and I know you never tire of hearing it. Count the times I love you. You do not have enough atoms in your body to count those times. I loved you before your birth, and I will love you after your death. We will love each other forever. It is for that I brought you into existence, to be loved by you and to be loved by others, for you to love others and be loved by them. Cherish these words and put them on your wall. Read them often. Meditate on them. I love you. Let these words be on your mind when you die. Such joy when we see each other face to face. Such joy. Now, I need to be honest about that. God,
Minute.
1 minute, thank you. God told that to me, and I need to believe that. That's the truth. That's what God thinks about me, and that's what I think about God. We're utterly in love with each other. And so I can only imagine I have not told you what you may have expected to hear. But that's what honesty is for me. I need to be honest about the fact that I'm a compulsive overeater, and I need to be honest about I have a higher power who's utterly in love with me, and I'm utterly in love with my higher power. So that's what I have. And I love you all. every last one of you. And I know you love me too, and that means a lot to me. So thanks very much. Thanks for my being here. I didn't